They were 10 miles short, a day's march from their triumphant monarch's mighty encampment. 10 miles short of the war which had been simmering and spluttering up and down the country for the past 12 months. They could hear the dull thump of the guns clearly enough, but instead of marching on through the night to join King Charles's irresistible army, they had dawdled and dwindled, running off into the woods as soon as the new colonel's back was turned.
"You're all fools,"
Slaughter growled.
"I'm a Midlands man, as well you know."
The surly pack knew no such thing. He was fresh off the boat from Ireland, the devil's own doorstep. Who, why, and where he had served too complicated a matter for their campfire deliberations. If he'd come from Ireland, he must be Irish. Irish or not, he was no better than the rest of the murdering papist heathens who slaughtered men, women, and children during the notorious rebellions and constant bloodletting which the news sheets had been breathlessly reporting for the past 2 years. Scenes of rape and slaughter luridly reproduced in crude but effective woodcuts, in endless pages of badly set type. The wild rumours were puffed up like a paper galleon and blown into every port along the coast, along with the pale-faced refugees, the pitifully few survivors of the Holocaust. The scandalous stories were repeated around 1,000 towns, passed like the pox from camp to camp, army to army, horrifying soldier and civilian alike. Even those readers hardened by reports of the atrocities on the continent blanched at the descriptions of the abominations being committed in Ireland. The heathen mobs had roasted children on spits before their gagging parents and gorged themselves on the scorched flesh. Given half a chance, they would be scrambling on their leather boots and padding like demons for England's shores, eating their kinfolk too. A dozen armies roamed like rabid wolves over the ravaged countryside, Scots and Irish, Loyalists and Confederate, in the name of the King or Parliament, Catholic or Covenanter. Each regiment, each band divided upon itself, sublet for the ceaseless slaughter. To the 400 ragged-ass recruits on Much Hinden Green, far from home under their stiff and unfamiliar new colours, Michael Slaughter's service was proof enough of his guilt, his vile complicity in the barbaric genocide across the water.
"He's Nottingham born and bred. I'll vouch for the colonel,"
Captain Shea said stoutly, seconding the pale and silent commander who was pacing before them like an expectant father outside the midwife's hut. The mob stood still, breathing as one, a big stinking bear rousing itself from a long and arduous hibernation. Nottingham, York, Newcastle. The defiant scarecrows had no more grasp of their divided country's northern geography than the noisy rooks cawing in the churchyard elms. These were raw-boned country boys from the southwest, driven like cattle from one poorly armed militia to another, ruffians who didn't know who they served or particularly care. Bewildered herdsmen from the Wiltshire and Berkshire Downs, poor tenants' sons from down the Fossway, a scattering of turncoat Welsh who had served in half a dozen regiments already and never won a fight yet. Most of them had followed the drum, and the promise of a shilling or two, into the regiment that summer. A few dozen more had been pressed into service from the doss pits and alehouses along the way, along with an equal number of turncoats captured on Roundway a few weeks previously. 100 had already deserted, made off while the old colonel lay puking and dying, and shedding his scaly skin in his tent. Another 50 more slipped off over the dewy fields, while Michael Slaughter toured the pestilent camp, counting heads. Now the remnant looked ready to bolt, to join the scramble for the hedges and ditches, to desert their sovereign in his hour of need before Gloucester's Puritan walls. If the king could take the city, he would hold the key to Wales and the west, control all the territory from Cornwall into the South Midlands. His Royalist armies had whipped Essex and destroyed William Waller's army on the slopes before Devizes, and then hurried west to wrestle Bristol from its parliamentary overlords. If Charles could finish the triumphant summer by taking Gloucester, the war would be halfway won.
"He may be from Nottingham, but him's still Irish,"
a well-concealed wag bawled back.
"I've been fighting the Irish Confederates for 18 months.
Slaughter snapped, unable to prevent himself from being drawn into an unseemly slanging match with his troops, bickering like a corporal with his scum-pissing crew.
"Who dares suggest I'm one of them? Stand forth!"
Slaughter yelled. Captain Shea nervously tracked his commander, laying about the muttering ranks with his greasy gauntlet.
"Stand aside! Have a care!"
Shea's furious shouts seemed to send a frisson of anger through the thickets of pikes and blunt undergrowth of musketeers, further undermining the regiment's questionable loyalty. A bow-legged old veteran shoved the captain out of the honeycombed ranks.
"Watch it, Shea, boy. We'll be after you too, mind."
The veteran leered through the gaps in his black teeth.
"Coyotes, you drunken oaf! Any more of that clatter and you'll be running the gauntlet."
Shea snarled back. The elder sergeant stood his ground.